And welcome. Hello, everyone. That was a weird little hesitation on one of the Facebook groups. We are live. We're going to be talking to Luke Stone. This is, of course, Nuts and Bolts. So I'm going to be conducting an interview where we're going to dive deep into this project from the creator's standpoint.
New from Terraform Comics, Hybrids, The Sons of Gods, Volume 1, Trash Day. When everyday people develop godlike abilities, it is up to a small band of heroes to expose an evil superhuman trafficking ring. This 128-page volume merges history with fiction in an exciting, fast-paced adventure. Get your copy now.
So here we are right now, present day. We're at the trade. But I want to go all the way back. I want to go all the way to the first time it was an idea. Start there. When was the very first thought you had for doing this?
Oh, goodness. That was so long ago. So my very first thought for doing this was probably 2005, 2005, maybe 2006. And I had this idea about, what if heroes could have like a genetic hybrid? Like, what if it was genetics that created these characters? And so I created this idea called Hybrid Nation, and started working on a couple of characters and things like that, and talked with some friends that people wanted to write comics and things like that. And so we started to work on Hybrid Nation, and then that obviously didn't go anywhere outside of a few sketches that I had, and I wasn't a writer, but I was just an artist, so it didn't really go anywhere. And so that kind of died until a couple of years after that. I wound up hanging out with this. I started going to a new church, and I started working with this new kind of mentor guy that was actually over the youth ministry, and he was kind of training me to do youth ministry. And we would oftentimes start talking about kind of the weird things that are in scripture, and one of the weirdest things that kept coming up was, in Genesis chapter 6, it talks about these sons of God or angels. They would see these daughters of men. They liked what they saw, and so they would have babies. And we started talking how that actually connects, to these things like ancient aliens and pyramids and all that kind of stuff. If you get into the book of Enoch and what it says there about it, it's really kind of neat that, all these things are layered up. You talk, the stories about the Tower of Babel in the Old Testament, where it talks, God decides to split everybody's language and stuff because they were all unified. They were building this big tower to heaven. And, the question we kept saying is would God really be concerned with a bunch of people that were building a big rock tower? No, I don't think so. So there has to be something more to it, right? So all these conversations kept leading to different things. And we would often talk about how people actually believe that the Greek gods were just they were real life extensions, kind of exaggerations of the Nephilim, like real life Nephilim. And so it's well, if the Nephilim were real and all these other religions, it turns out all these other religions were talking about that particular thing too. So what if all those things kind of connected together? And so what if pyramids, the Nephilim had something to do with that? What if, if all the Greek gods and stuff are just exaggerations of real life Nephilim? So what if the Nephilim, what if these guys were real too? What if Mount Olympus was something? What if Atlantis was something? And then you start hearing, the stories recounted from Columbus, from his journals, about this light that came up and flickered next to their ship and then went down under the water. And you see about underwater runways and how some people believe aliens aren't from outer space, but they're from the oceans and stuff. And so we just little strings started tying all of that stuff together. And he had known about this idea of the Hybrid Nation thing that I was doing. He goes, this right here would make a good comic book. He goes, this is what you need to do. This would make a good comic book. And he goes, Luke, you should write it. And I started then at that point, that's when I started doing a lot of real heavy research and really digging deep into what this world might be, really kind of get into what it would look like if all of these things really could be. So that's kind of really the start of it, was way back then, way back then. So.
All right. So you get the idea. What was the first step in that process now? You know you want to do it. Someone's convinced you, I can do this. How did you start out? Because like you said, when you first started this, you were just an artist. You weren't a writer. And we now know you are a writer. So how did that gears change from just being an artist to being an artist and a writer?
Well, the idea kept getting a little more and more complicated. And so my first trick was just hey, let's just research this thing and find out where all the pieces really do connect, because I wanted to write something. I wanted something that had some fiction in it, but also had some connections into real life. So this could possibly happen, with that kind of like this maybe kind of thing. But so I always wanted to work with a writer, and I would work with other people that, that claim to be a writer or whatever. And I would try to explain it to them, and they'd want to change it. They'd want to do things with it. It's like, oh, well, what if we did that? And I'm like, but then that contradicts this other thing that you haven't even listened long enough to hear. Cause I mean, the story became so complicated, this whole world. Cause when you're building a world, everything has a rule to it, so whatever happens right here, in Florida, is affected by the rules of the world around us. And so things that happen overseas, that happen in other places, it all kind of connects and affects what we're doing right now. And, writers, they never wanted to take the time to get to understand the whole world. It's like, look, I've spent probably 7-8 years building this whole world, and all these aspects to it. And so eventually I just gave up on having a writer work on it. And so I would work on other things. And it was 2015 when I actually had pitched kind of the idea in a pitch room for a company I was doing called Terraform, not Terraform, called Tenacious Comics. The problem with having two companies that have a name that starts with T. But I was with Tenacious Comics, and we had kind of like this little brainstorming room. Like we would do little Zoom calls and stuff like that, and Skypes and conference calls, and just roll around ideas. And there was maybe we need something that's kind of like superhero based. I'm like, well, I got this idea, and I kind of pitched the idea, and they go, well, and I said, but I haven't been able to find someone that can write it, because it's too complicated, and no one wants to sit through and listen to all the rules for the, kind of the universe, and it won't be fun to tell it like in a line, like linearly. All that stuff just needs to kind of come out organically, through the story, and it's just too much of a hassle to try to work with a writer on it. And so they said, well, no, you should write it, like write the script and do the first issue, and let's put out the first issue. And so that's kind of where I made that transition from kind of idea into writer at that point. So
that makes sense. And Meredith will kill me if I don't tell all the listeners listening right now that this is part of the indie event. So the normal nuts and bolts would be hosted by Luke Stone, but we decided to on Indiegogo right now. This would be a fun thing to put him in the hot chair, and we're going to examine the creative process behind this. We're going to a deep dive. So if you guys have questions, please throw them in the chat right now. Maybe we'll even, if we get a little time, we'll throw out a link so you guys can come in and ask Luke live, because there's nothing like talking to the people live. We'll see if we have any time, because there's a lot I want to go over. So you get to Tenacious Comics, you want to start this up. How do you guys decide the terms of the book? Like, what was the first thing supposed to be? Was it supposed to be an ongoing series? Were we talking a limited edition? Was this going to be part of something bigger?
Well, we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants back then. We were all new to publishing. We all were really good at one particular aspect of what we were doing, but not necessarily many aspects. And so we all kind of pitched in to try to get the books better. And at that point, we were thinking, I was already working on this book called Worst Day Ever. And that was my ongoing thing. And so this was kind of a test. I knew it was going to be a longer arc, but so I'd set it up to be 3 5-issue arcs. So I would have the first arc, the second arc, the third arc, but with the first issue, I didn't know if anyone was really going to dig it or not. So that was kind of so it was really kind of a test. It was, this could have been a one-off. If it did well, I had a second issue already done and ready to go in case it was good, in case it had a good reception. But it was just, flying by the seat of our pants back then. Had no idea. We were learning everything. We're even learning like crowdfunding at the time. So we had zero clue of what we were doing, but we, somehow this came out of it.
And that's the cool thing about creativity, is the fact that these amazing things can happen when we least expect them. So, okay, obviously it didn't stay with Tenacious Comics. How long were you at Tenacious Comics before you wound up going off, I assume, on your own? Take us through that transition.
Yeah, so I had a second issue of Worst Day Ever out released. I had the third issue still halfway drawn on my hard drive right now, and ready to go. This issue, the first issue of Hybrids, came out, was pretty well successful. Sold quite a few copies, and then I had the second issue ready to go. And at that point in time, a lot of people that follow my work, they know that I'm a full-time pastor, and so I was working at this church, and we were having some issues that required a lot of hands-on care at the time, and so I was not going to have the same amount of time that I had before in order to be able to do the work that I was doing for both the comics and the church. So I handed over operations to another person who had been working with us and seemed pretty trustworthy. Well, in the few months that he was there, we had a funded campaign for one of our creators that the money just never showed up. And so we eventually got some of that money, but myself and the creator had to kind of fund out of pocket for that for the most part. And that just kind of created this big rift kind of with things. And so we just discontinued that company. We closed the doors and said, no more Tenacious Comics. It's not happening. But after I'd done that, I got contacted by a guy named Joe Spicer, who runs a company called Starcross Comics. And he had seen some of the artwork for the book. He knew it involved the Nephilim, and he was kind of into that. And so he wanted to release the book under his title. And so under his company. And so we did release the first issue and then re-released the first issue with him, and then did the second issue. And I just still kind of was in this process of this 2 years, like almost 2 years of just having to kind of back off. And it wasn't until, about a year and a half ago that I was able to like really kind of dig in and see that those two issues had done well. And then we just kind of rolled with it from there and released the next 3 issues pretty quickly in concession. And then, so that brought kind of that success brought like, okay, now I'm able to do this. And I wanted to, there's some certain things I wanted to be able to do professionally that company just wasn't ready to do, but I kind of was. And so that brought me into a conversation of it's time to leave here and partner with some people that are ready to kind of make some of the same big chances, like big, take the big leaps with me. And so that's kind of where that came from the, from one spot to the next there.
Now, of course, during this creative journey, the story had to have, because you're growing as you're going, and there's these changes, and you're stopping to do new, I guess, even imprints. You had to change a couple times. How much of that is has it affected the story, I guess, on the journey? Because a lot of times, sometimes when we have to go back and look at something, we start making changes to it, even the stuff that we haven't personally gone through yet.
Yeah, that's true. A little bit, and there was a connected universe at one time that we were trying to make this be a part of with other creators' books. And so a big chunk of the world that I was kind of a little further ahead than everybody else. So a big chunk of the world that I was creating and the world building that I was doing was helping to kind of pour in to everybody else's stuff too. It was, and so when we moved companies, some of that stuff did have to change. But over the course of, starting it, I knew where I wanted the arc to go back in 2015 when I started drawing it, and then it eventually released in 2016. So from 2016 to 2020, I knew pretty much where I wanted it to go back then. But as I kind of went through some of those personal changes and things happening in my life, the outcome changed. I was like, oh, I really would like to take the story here. I would really like to do this. And so some of the things that were happening to me kind of wound up going into the story and into the characters as well. So as I grew, not only as a writer and artist, but as a person, I was able to allow that to affect the story a bit. And I think for the better.
And that makes sense. So let's talk about creative teams because we want to go all the way to the back. From issue 1, how have the creative teams changed?
Well, for issue 1, I was the sole artist, and I was originally going to do the colors, but I just didn't like the work that I was doing. I was like, something was missing, and I didn't have the time to do it. So I was able to test out a few colorists early on, and then I settled with this guy named Patrick Gamma. And so Patrick was kind of early on in his work as well. And so, but Patrick has been with me through every issue. So everything that you see, with the exception of the Serafina book, was all Patrick Gamma's colors. And Serafina I did myself. So, but yeah, everybody else was that. And then I wound up doing the lettering myself on issue 1. And yeah, that's pretty much. So I wrote, drew, lettered, and then the only help I had was with colors, and that was with Patrick, and he just had a good feel for it. It was issue 2 we started to change out a little bit because I was working on another title and I was helping with running the company, and I needed someone to come along and help with my rough layouts. So I found this artist by the name of Antonio Alvarez, who did a great job at the time. He was doing really good work. And so he came in and did like these rough thumbnails for me. And then that way I could just slide over from one project to the next and just draw them out, just draw the whole page, pencil and ink. I did add in a letterer named Nikki Sherman. She's fantastic letterer. And so she's actually back on the project now. It's one of those things. I was good at lettering, so I would cover the lettering stuff as much as I could. So, but again, I did pencils and inks. Patrick continued to do the colors. Then we had Nikki Sherman do the lettering on that book. Things kind of went in reverse a little bit. So yeah, it was kind of. I had to take back on lettering and those kind of things. But we stayed with that team basically all the way up through issue 5. And then towards the end of issue 4, Antonio was having some personal issues and things, and it was really affecting his work and his not only his ability to get it done in a timely manner, but also kind of his creative output. And it was unfortunate. Like, we were kind of upset about that, but so I wound up having to do most of the layouts of issue 4 myself. And so it was a lot of like extra time added. And so in issue 5, we added on Brian Dawson to do our layouts. And so that's been the only real change, is that. So that's pretty much been the creative team. Yep.
Sorry, I had the spinning wheel of death.
Yeah.
That's what I get for having a million things open in the background. So, Of course, the biggest question I have to ask is, so you brought it to Terraform. It's collected now. Let's just talk a little bit quickly about the mistakes you felt you made. Because once we get to a trade, there's always a few mistakes. And have you ever been tempted to go back and fix them?
Well, Rob, absolutely. I've been tempted to go back and fix those things. But I just, I want to keep telling a new story. And so one of the first issues that I always keep going back to was the very first issue of the book. I had originally written it 22 or so pages. But because I really didn't understand page count back then and what it cost to do. We're all learning. And we realized that we needed to have a 24-page self cover, which meant I needed 20 pages of content on the inside and 4 pages total for the cover sleeve. And so I had to cut the script down by 2 pages, and we weren't really working with editors back then. So we didn't really know how to do it. We had this one guy that was editing, and that was the guy that wound up screwing us over. And he was not really a story editor, but more of a copy editor. And so we were like, well, we need to cut this down. And so I cut that down. And so if there was anything that I was ever tempted to do, it would be to go back in and add 2 pages to that. But it would look so different from that first issue because my art style has changed so much. And so I even got better for issue 2, especially when I started hiring someone to do a layout. So I didn't have to like worry about all that scratching and scribbling and they had like all the panels laid out on the page for me. I could just go in and draw them and really focus in on the art and the stuff that I wanted to do. So, but yeah, there's also issues, I noticed like I was struggling with like consistency and faces and how I wanted to draw faces. And so all that stuff just kind of, you look back at all that and you wish you could change some of those things. And I've thought about it, but really what's cool is for most people now, there's this opportunity for people to see the growth from issue 1 to issue 5. and be able to see that growth as an artist and a writer. And so they get to travel that journey with me, which not a lot of people get to do, so it's really kind of neat to do that.
Absolutely true. And okay, so you went through these three companies, and now, of course, Terraform isn't just a company you're part of. You're a founding member. What do you think Terraform offers at this point that you didn't get from the past two publishers you were part of with Terraform? I mean, with Hybrids.
Yeah, a few things. There's a more focused team than before. Like before, when we'd run a campaign or something like that, it was still very individualistic. Like it was your campaign, their campaign, and things like that. With Terraform, we really look at it. It's our campaign. So instead of like, hey, Luke's running a new Hybrids campaign, it's like, no, Terraform is running a Hybrids campaign. And same way when we take a look at Mark Darden's stuff that we're getting ready to do, we're working on his campaign. It's Terraform's running this campaign, so there's really that really kind of connected and cohesiveness there that we didn't really have at the other two. Plus this just extreme drive of everyone that's in, and I would say that we had that also with Tenacious Comics. Everyone had a shared equal drive, not saying Starcross didn't have drive, they did, but it was at different levels. Everyone had a different motivation, a different level of drive. But with Tenacious Comics, they had an equal across the board level of drive, but we just didn't have any experience or knowledge. It's like taking that same drive and moving it over with people that actually have, some clue. We've had a few years of experience now, so that'd be the main difference.
So now you're here, you've crowdfunded a bunch of stuff. You're here right now. Why go to Indiegogo for this campaign after all the history you've had? What made you think I want to wrap up? Because that's really what you're doing with the trade. You're wrapping up that very first story arc.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple reasons, and I actually shared this with someone the other day. There's 6 basic reasons why I decided to go. Actually, more than 6, but we'll only go over 6. 6 basic reasons why I decided to go with Indiegogo. The first one is this was completely covered already. So there is a few new pieces of art, but it's all paid for. It's all produced. It's all ready to go. This thing's ready to go to print. So there wasn't a lot of risk involved. The second thing, because there wasn't a lot of risk involved, I wanted to try out a new platform. There's a lot of features to this, to the Indiegogo platform that I really like. I like the secret perks. I like the add-on perks. I like how it charges, it pulls, the finances right away instead of waiting until the end, so you don't have dropped pledges. There's just a lot of aspects about the Indiegogo platform that I like from a creator standpoint, and the ability to be able to go in demand and things like that. So that was one of the reasons. Also, I've noticed that the average dollar per backer is higher on the Indiegogo platform versus the Kickstarter platform, and I knew that this was a trade with a higher entry level. So we're going for more money with this one, and it's a $25 entry, and so it's like how do you do that on a platform that is usually $20 average? So not saying that it couldn't be done, but I thought, hey, we also want to test this out for the other creators that's going to be coming on to that's going to be coming on to Terraform Comics. If we could figure out how to be successful on both platforms, then let's do that. And so Hybrids, the trade, is actually kind of also it's also a bit of I'm a guinea pig with it. It's just a bit of a test. So that's why.
That makes sense. So right now we're sitting at 2401 with 45 amazing backers. Yep. International backers have been invited, by the way. This is not one of those campaigns that actually run away from international shipping. Can you explain a little bit about that method that you're going with?
Yeah. So, and I think this is helpful, like especially when you're building a campaign for anyone out there, for the nuts and bolts of it, that people want to be able to get a hold of your book, and they may not all live in the same country as you. And that's what I'm running into with Hybrids. I've had a lot of international backers over the years, and one of the biggest problems I've had is the cost of shipping. And right now, with the United States Postal Service the way that it is, the costs are going up even for domestic shipping, let alone international shipping. And so I'm not able to keep that price where I want to keep it for my international backers. So in order to offset that, we're trying something new. Again, this is just everything is there's a lot of things being tested and tried on this one and see how they work. And this one is that we just throw some additional things in there specifically for our international backers so that they feel appreciated and they have a little more value for the dollar for their pledge. So
that makes sense. All right. I don't want to hog up the whole program because we do have a couple great questions that are coming in. So we're going to take some questions for a minute. We'll come right back to this on the other side of questions because the fans being part of this and fellow creators seemingly makes this so much more important. And Ines asked, hey, Rob, where's the shirt and tie? I am literally wearing my Advocate shirt. That was the whole point. I felt it was ill form because this is not my show to be in a tie. It's really Luke's show. And I'm just doing this because we're in Terraform together, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes or make it seem like I'm the host. Because usually a host wears a tie.
And so I'm really informal too, so.
Yeah, so I didn't want it to feel that way. Like that was way too much. You will see the tie. Trust me, the tie is coming out today. And Geek Insider says, hey, Luke Stone, we really let me switch this so you're not totally blocked. There we go. Hey, Luke Stone, we really appreciate you being part of the indie event. Let's see if we can watch the needle move on your Indiegogo and blast past the 50% mark. I know everyone listening right now is going to help us because we have the thousands upon thousands of Indie Vote listeners on the radio right now. We have the hundreds of excited fans that are going to watch this video over the next couple days. Because that's the great thing about the indie event. These videos will last, and the campaign ends on.
It's got 20 more days. It's got 20 more days. But if we hit the 5,000, we'll go into in demand. So hopefully, no matter when you're listening to this, you'll be able to find this this campaign up there and be able to at some point get in on it.
And we're going to make sure at Terraform that we get over that finish line. So we're not even worried about that. It will be in demand. Ines says, hi, Luke. Did I hear that right? You are a full-time you are actually a full-time pastor.
I am, yeah.
Did that have an influence on your comic, or did you keep the two separate? Great question, Ines.
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that. I do get a lot of questions about the being a full-time pastor. I'm a reverend. I'm an ordained minister, and most people just know me as Pastor Luke. But it had a little, because of the knowledge that I have about biblical things, was able to go into the work of the book. But for the most part, I just wanted to make a comic book that was entertaining. And I did want to be able to write it, or at least have characters that had a similar Christian worldview that I had, and to be able to put Christians in a positive light, a realistic light. Let me put it that way, because I was actually watching one of these old 90s movies the other day, and it showed I think it was 10 Things I Hate About You. And it showed these kids all with singing some goofy Christian camp hymn while they're dancing around like it was. And I'm like, we don't do that. That's not how we act. So too many times I see in media, they're like, they portray how the Christians might look or how they might act or whatever. And I'm like, that's not how we are at all. So I using a little bit of my experience to, put Christians in a realistic expectation, but also to, to have some realistic conversations with people about faith in the world around them and things like that. So I do use a bit of that in there. It is, it's not a Christian comic book. It's just a regular comic book that does have a bit of, that does have a bit of my worldview influence in it. So, yeah.
A great question again. Phil said, now is the best time to step up. No new normal, but rather the new standard in the industry. Indies will no longer be unseen. What do you think about that?
I completely agree with Phil. He understands that very well. We're seeing a lot of people keep talking about how the comics industry is struggling, but I see independent guys and gals out there making comics and thriving right now. So this is definitely a fans market, and we are definitely making books for the fans. So, yeah.
And Ines says, thank you, Luke, for your comments on Iva's lettering. It has been redone by Timothy Green II.
And Timothy Green is a good letterer. Not that yours was bad, but his is professional. Yes, good move on that. It's going to make your book have that polish, which your book is already amazing. I mean, it really is. So,
and we'll drop the link to that because that's also in demand right now. Yeah. But until then, until I get a second to actually do it, Marvy wants to give you the death metal.
Yeah.
or metal. It could just be. I said death because of the skull, but that's metal too, baby.
Got that in there. Yeah.
Geek Insider says, for anyone tuning in, watching, like and share this program. Please do that. Indie event's pretty important. It's important because it's all about different creators. This is a moment to make not only Luke shine, but the industry shine. We are doing our best to make sure people haven't forgotten about us, even though there aren't Comic Cons. So we need you guys to support us by getting the word out. Whether you're a guest on the show or if you're commenting or if you're just sitting in the background listening, please share this out on your pages so everyone can be involved in the indie event. All right. Sean BN says, I am running my first Indiegogo. Any advice to push my campaign to,
Yes.
and how can you push the campaign?
Yes. So here's the thing with Kickstarter, it's a little easier because whenever somebody backs something on Kickstarter, it sends out a notification to anyone that follows them that so-and-so just backed something on Kickstarter. So it brings that campaign to kind of the forefront for you to look at. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is on Indiegogo. So the best way to get your Indiegogo pushed is to get your voice and maybe even your face on as many streams as you possibly can. So I would suggest going through on Twitter or Facebook and finding people and adding friends or following people with the hopes of getting followers, to reciprocate. That way you can get as many people looking at that campaign. Make sure that you post something about it at least every day, okay? So you want to make sure you post something about that every day. A little trick that we've used on Kickstarter and I also use with Indiegogo is every week I unlock a new perk. Okay, so I automatically am going to add something new so that I have something new to advertise. That way I'm not just every week saying, hey, go check out the same stuff I told you to go check out last week that you didn't want to buy. Say this time I've got something new that you might want to check out. And so I'll create new perks and then add-on perks that I know that I'm going to roll out every week. So that happens. And then set your goals pretty realistically. The goal that obviously that I have set for this is quite high. But given what I've been able to do in the past with crowdfunding, it's not outside of the scope of realistic for us, for me and for the Terraform folks. And so, but make sure that it's something realistic. If it's your first campaign and it's a 32-page floppy, try not to set these massive goals where you're going to be like, $10,000. You might get it if you have a good following, but be realistic. How much is it that you need to actually produce that and make sure that comes out? So if a combination of those things and just sharing and doing those things and getting on as many podcasts and live streams as you can. The Advocator is, Comics Advocate is a good one. Indie Volt, by all means, try to get on those things. Phil Locklear has a great show. The Geek Insider. Again, I could be pitching all of these things, but there's a whole bunch of other ones too. So feel free to message me. You can go to lukestonestudios.com and message me, and we can have a conversation about really what, how we can help your project get a little more notice. So.
And we're going to be right back in 1 second. We're just going to take a quick break.
At Geek Insider, we foster relationships with those in the geek sphere so we can give our audience the insider view of entertainment, tech, and more.
And for those who don't know, this entire weekend is brought to us by Geek Insider, Indie Volt, and comicbookadvocates.com, forming the Advocating Trinity. And I just made that up. And yes, I'm going to use that.
And I like it. Yeah.
Advocating Trinity on social media and the World Wide Web. So let's get into this a little bit right now.
Yeah.
So here we are at the trade. We have an exciting revelation in the last couple of days, don't we?
Yeah, we really do. So we have this cover by Kanan White, man. I'm telling you, it is a gorgeous cover. I'm in the process of getting colors done for it now. So we will be hopefully revealing the colors of the cover tomorrow. That's the goal anyway. So that's the plan. And so we'll be revealing that. And he did a great job. I don't know if you're familiar with Kanan White's work, but he is an amazing artist who clearly draws better than I do. But I'm not mad at that. I'm just very excited to have him be a part of the project. And so we do have the 3 cover options. We have the pardon me, the standard cover, which is it's kind of a collage of all 5 covers. And then we've got the next cover is by Brian Dawson, who does the layouts for issue 5 and for some of the newer stuff that we've done. And he originally did that cover as a connected cover with some of the Starcross folks. And then I was like, oh no, I'm not in the Starcross folks anymore, so I can't use it. But not wanting to waste anything that I pay for and knowing how great that cover turned out, we stick it on this book and we're making it a holofoil. And then the very special cover is the Canaan White one. And so that is a big deal. And so we do have 3 levels of kind of the perks. So you can basically get the book. You basically, get the book, a bookmark, or you can step into the next level of the collector's kit. You get the book, the bookmark, and a couple other collector's items. Then we have the ultimate collector's kit that gets new things added to it. A couple of new things added to it, but it has even more stuff to it. And then the big super box that has all of the, basically everything that we get and throw in there, with the exception of original art, will go into the big super box. And then I also have a couple of original art pages. So here's something for everyone to think about when you are doing your work. Understand that people are collectors and they're going to want to have something special. Well, I typically work digital. And so I will work digital, and some of the stuff that I'll print off will be a 1-of-1, and I'll sign that, and that'll work as my original art. And I've done that with the inks on most of these things, but there was 1 instance, 3 instances actually, where I was like, this is kind of a cool page, and I think people are going to like it, and I don't want to do this one digital. And so I print off the kind of the blue roughs that I'd done, and then I pencil over that. And so I have 3 pages that I've done that too. And so you can get those, and you should get those.
Let me ask you, I bought all the books already. I have every Hybrids thing. Why do I need to look at this, Luke? I mean, you just collected. There's nothing original in here.
Well, that's not true. There's some original stuff in there. So that was a good question, Rob. Thank you for the segue. So I've actually had people ask that question, isn't this the same? Is this the same thing in the books that I've already bought? Yes and no. So it is the same as the ones that you got before. If you were one of the few to get a hold of the Serafina book that we had a very limited run of from the last Kickstarter, you would also have that book, which is also included in this trade paperback. But nobody, and I mean nobody, has this special story that was written. Chuck Pino, my editor at the time, and I were working very hard on a 4-page set of a 4-page story that was supposed to go in a special Advocator edition that wound up not happening. So those 4 pages is kind of like an end credits, like a Marvel's end credit scene, is going in the back of the book. So you're getting that, which is brand new content into the story, and it gives you an insight to what to expect in the next arc. That's in there. But aside from that, we've also got some creator notes and commentary about the process of creating the book, showing some of the original art, showing some of the process, some of the links, all the kind of stuff that kind of went into it. And so you get a chance to see all of those things that we can't normally share with a floppy. You get to see all of those things. So really cool. So yeah, there is more than just what you've typically seen in the book already. So
we're just putting up Iva real quick. That was the story that we were talking about, where we were talking about. I'm putting that in here. Thank you for that. And also, I don't think we actually covered her last comment. She said, "Thank you, Pastor Luke, for the answers." So, all right. So we're gonna move on, and we're gonna talk about the future. So we have the trade here. Yeah. The trade isn't the end all of the story, is it?
No, not at all. Actually, there's a whole lot more to come. In fact, I've got plotted out probably another 9 or 10 issues. That's going to happen over the course of this next story. So I actually started writing the next arc, and I'm working with my new editor. Her name's Piper, and we are working hard on that to get the first of the new arc, which, if you have seen before, I've advertised it as Love Lost Part 1, but I actually decided to change that, Rob. And tell me if you think this title's better. I'm not going to call it Love Lost Part 1. I'm going to call it The Killing Fields. The Killing Field Part 1. What do you think of that?
Sounds a little horrific.
Yeah, because I want people to
tonal change.
What's that?
Will we get that tonal change? Is this a foreshadowing moment?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, this is for whatever I lacked in my pacing for the first arc, I'm going to make up for in this one. And so it's yeah, it's going to be fun for the reader.
I think that could happen.
Yeah.
And so we get to this new thing. Can you give us any hints of what we might see coming? That title could be so ambiguous to like exactly what's going on. Anything you can share with us to kind of tease the future?
Yeah. So whatever you think as you read this first arc, when you find out what the kind of the main tension is with the antagonist, you actually learn that there is a whole other level of bad things happening than what you could even have imagined from before. That that this kind of superhuman trafficking ring, it's doing more than just harvesting what they think they're harvesting, but it's actually creating a whole other industry based off of their torture. So it's really kind of messed up.
Sounds like it. So with that in mind, what do you actually grade, like not grade, rating system wise? What would you say people should consider this book rated as?
It's T for teen, definitely. So I wouldn't, some people let their younger kids read it. You might have some explaining to do, and there might be a couple of images. There's no nudity or sexuality and no hard language. There's a couple of little curse words, and the harder language has got, it's got the Qbert stuff in the bubble, so, but there are a few harsh images that quite honestly, I've had grown men when they read the comic call me and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sick to my stomach. I can't believe that just happened." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was rough." So.
All right. So, let me tell you, some of these collector packs always interest me the most. If you're a fan of You, what is the suggestion you have for everyone out there? This is the time to get this because you'll never get it again.
Any of those Kane and White covers, even the retail packages do not have those covers in them. That is exclusive to Indiegogo. You have to get it from there. Even if we decide to take this, as a company, we decide to go and run a short 2-week cleanup over on Kickstarter for those that prefer that platform, you are not going to get the Kane and White cover. It's just not going to happen. It's the exclusive one over there. So if you like that cover, definitely do that. And I would suggest getting the collector's kit, because the collector's kit is going to give you the ability to get some of that other stuff. If you don't like all that other swag and you do like the original art, there's 2 of the original arts up right now. Pick one of those. And the cool thing is about that is when you pick the cover, like, you get to pick whatever cover you want. So let's say you wanted, the holofoil, you could get. If you want the Kane and White, you can get it. It doesn't affect the price of those at all. It's all worked into the total package. So choose your cover. So if you really like my work, grab some of the pencils, the original pencils, and choose the Kane and White cover, because that thing is sick.
All right. And the Kane and White won't be available outside of this campaign?
Nope. You'll only be able to get it here. And at some point, once this goes into in demand, I will have a limited number of those copies, and it will, I won't print anymore. And so they won't be available. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So this is your only chance for those of you listening on the radio and watching live.
This
is your only chance to get that outside of possibly running into Luke himself on the convention scene, because I assure you all, eventually there will be a convention scene again, and when that happens, they might not even be around. They might not even be around. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff at Terraform. This is, for those who don't know, this is also brought to you by this event. In a lot of ways, Terraform. Yeah. 3 of the creators of Terraform, the founders here, are all part of this. So obviously, we're very excited about Terraform Comics being successful and selling these things out. So we're going to get Luke not only to get this, but we want him to sell out of everything. Well, I have Cat Dad books that don't have the Terraform logo on it that have to go away now. So those are going to be limited edition stuff. We're all excited about where we already heard. See, I get to hear things. I don't know. As the guest, I can't tell. I mean, the host right now, I can't tell you, or the interviewer. that what he has in mind, but he has some sick stuff coming up in the near future, plus all the other great stuff. So this is the moment. If you're a collector, and I stress this to people all the time, look, when you're doing a trade, you're getting the collector's edition. No one does a trade again. There's one time you do a trade one time, you might go reprint the trade, but no one ever redoes the trade. This will be the first printing on that trade. Yeah. This is also going to be the first book to really have the Terraform logo on it, Hybrids. It's already has it. You can get your copies now. And is there a collector's like tier? I didn't even look at it.
There is, yeah. I've got the super box, and so basically there's kind of the collectors for everybody. But if you want, basically what the super box is, it just puts everything in there except for original art. So I am waiting on artwork to come back for a new set of covers that's going to be available through Terraform Comics, and so we will be able to put when those come out, those are going to go in there. I'm doing some homage covers that may go onto, and not just in the mini poster set, but might actually go onto the books, and so that would automatically go into the super box, and so you'll get the. If you don't already have the Terraform branded books, which you probably don't, so you'll get the Terraform branded books. You'll get the Brian Dawson has done a panoramic, so all 5 covers are a connected cover. They all match, so you could frame those if you wanted to. And so we'll be revealing those early next week, and we'll put those in there. And then if we do the homage covers, those will go in there. Every poster we put in will go in there. Everything gets added into this thing, and so you basically get everything. And you don't even have to wait for like some of the stretch goals to happen. Like if we have it available, then it's going in, because you're paying a lot of money for it.
Meredith says, I was very impacted by the story arc, and I am very motivated to see this book reach the stretch goal for totally selfish reasons. What's going on with the stretch goal?
Thank you, Meredith. We have our first stretch goal. Well, it's probably going to wind up being our second stretch goal, because I told someone we'd put in a stretch goal for a patch for the logo, because someone wanted the patch, and so we're trying to work that into where that happens, or maybe it'll just be something I add in down the road. But anyway, at the 8,000 mark, we are going to add 12 more pages into the trade. So instead of being 128 pages, you get 140 pages, and some of those pages are going to be filled with guest writers and guest creative teams. So one of those guest writers is Meredith. And Meredith has written the most perfect 2 pages of horror that I have ever read. She piggybacks off of the 104 pages of main story and the 12 pages of backup story to deliver 2 pages of just brilliance. And so I really want to hit that 8K. I really, really want to hit that 8K. Some other people we've got is Brian K. Morris and Eric Hawkins are working on a 2-page story, and Brian brings his patented humor to it. We've got Raj Mahan and Jim O'Reilly doing a backup story. I have no idea what they're doing yet, so that will be a surprise, but I know it's going to be good coming from those guys. And then I've got Todd Oltmans and Nicholas Mueller also working on some backup story content for us as well. So a lot of really cool stuff coming. It's going to be really, really neat. And I really want to hit that 8K so that we can give that to everybody.
All right. We have, let's see. Brian K. Morris says, people love guest creators, especially writers. Let's hit the $8,000 people. And Sean says, have you ever used paid ads before?
I have, Sean. I've used paid ads for Facebook and for Twitter, and they have been incredibly unsuccessful. Nothing has worked better than just getting on a podcast and being in front of people and basically begging them to buy my book. Like that has been the most successful out of all of that. And so it costs you more in time, but less in money. And so though you could run an ad, it's unless you have a big name or a recognizable character, most people aren't going to click on it.
Now, also, have you ever made the decision whether or not you'll have ads in this trade, possibly?
Yeah, there's going to be no ads in this trade. So, but there will be ads in the next printing of the Hybrids books. So if people do want to take out an ad in the second printing for Terraform Comics, they should definitely get a hold of me. or get a hold of Meredith or Rob, any of us, or Varian. Any of us can take your money for that. That we're all quite good at that. So.
Before we hit our 10-minute wrap up, I do want to give some love to Indie Vault. We're going to run their bumper. This is Indie Vault. Subscribe to IndieVolt.com to recharge your fandom and to get an education. Be sure to check out all of the Indie Vault programming on the Nines with hosts like Randy Zimmerman, The Kid, Varian Grant, The Indie Princess, with more hosts and shows to come. All right, we have closed the chat room. Last 10 minutes, no one's allowed in, so now it's just me and Luke the rest of the show. So, what have you felt?
The two of us.
What have you felt the hardest part of this creative process is? Because we have to commend Luke right now, and this is just a true statistic. People put out issue number 1, 50% of them put out issue number 2. A staggering 73%, I believe, was the last time they ran the numbers, making issue number 3. 4 and beyond is 90% do not. So he is officially within a 10% bracket of everyone who creates independent comic books. So he has the staying power. So what has made it so you have stayed so long and been part of the conversation and been in just a creative force that's gotten to a trade?
Tenacity. It's tenacity and having a good circle around you, people to encourage you. Great home base. It is hard. The hardest part is actually finishing. I think that's the hardest part with anything. And for me to say that I'm finished with this series, I have to write book 15. I have to have book 15 produced. That's when the story's over. And so I still have a long way to go with that, but it's definitely that tenacity, the stick it to itness, to just not give up and know that there's more to be told. It is very encouraging whenever a fan comes up and says, "Hey, I've read your book and I love it. And it spoke to me. It moved me." That's why I keep doing it, so for those little things. And so there's times when, you might want to drop off, and back out because it's too difficult, but you don't have to, you don't have to by any means. Just push through it. You don't make a whole lot of money through issues 1 through 3. I'll be honest with you. And that's probably why so many people back off, because you're not making your money back. I didn't really start becoming profitable until issue 5. Issue 5 was my first profitable issue. By then I'd paid for everything else and there was profits on all the other books, but it was the first book that I didn't lose money in the production out of pocket from the Kickstarter. So.
And if you're listening, this won't make much sense. So you have to subscribe to the channel for it to make sense. But for those of you watching it live, now is the time to take a screenshot, to actually click your phone to make it take a picture of your face of the phone, to get this QR code that will take you right to Terraform Comics, where you can see Luke Stone's thing. I don't have one for your current Indiegogo project, I don't think. Let me see. Do I? No, I don't. I thought we did.
Yeah, I thought we did. I thought it was in some bumper thing, some ad.
We'll find it for tomorrow, because you're going to be on the show tomorrow with us, correct?
Yes, I am.
So we have 20 days left. We just got another backer. We have 46 backers now to 2,471. We're 49%. Come on, guys. Let's get it to
we right. are. What is that?
Someone
$19.
$19. That's so. If one person gets a trade, you've all been watching.
$29. We're $29 away from
what he said. The math guy over there.
Yeah.
So make sure you jump on it right now. Come on, let's get this over. It's time to get this to be 50% funded. And throughout the weekend, let's get it even bigger. Marv says, I'm finishing my first comic book, and it's hard to put an end on it, man. Yeah, it really is. Especially, and I was talking to a creator about this just the other day. Me and Ness were on the news, and we were talking about how crazy it is the minute you hit to go to the printer. You're like, it takes you hours to just calm down and be like, no, nothing's going to go wrong. Nothing's going to go wrong. And then every so often when you get the book back, something's wrong. You're like, see, I knew it. So at Marv, we get it. There's never a perfect time to end. But I forgot who said it, but someone said never make perfect comics, just make good comics. I want to say it was Stan Lee, but I don't think it was. But it was a person. I'd have to look up the quote, but it's true. You're never going to make a perfect comic. Your first comic should never be perfect. And one of the things that Luke hadn't talked about, which I do want to bring up, and there's a lot to talk about when you're talking about the journey he's been on. The beginning to the end, you're going to see an artist grow. And I think that's the most beautiful thing of this book. You see his personal journey, his personal growth as a creator. His writing style is going to get better from issue to issue. His art's getting better from issue to issue. I'm sure even his lettering is better. Have you ever gone back and relettered the earlier pages?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you might not see that, but that is in there. That's all part of his journey. You're getting a 4-page story. It's a 4-page story, right? From the Advocate.
Technically 4. It's got a 5th establishing page. The first page is an establishing page, but then it's 4 pages after that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically a 5-page story that no one's ever seen. I've read it. I like it. It's really good. Some of his best work to date. I'm sorry it never made the Advocator. It just 2020 struck the Advocator this year. It was one thing after another. It was,
but it's okay. It's making it, it's making the trade special, because you can get, you don't have to, you can only get that there. And my advice for RV, here's my thing. The ending is the hardest. So I always start with the ending. I figure out where I want to end, and then I figure out where I want to start, and then I write the roadmap between the 2 points. So I make it a rhythm. Like jazz.
All right. It's that time to say where they can find you, because we're out of here.
Easy. You can find me at LukeStoneStudios.com. Just go to LukeStoneStudios.com, all one word, and you can find me there. You can find the Indiegogo link there. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can even find my Facebook link all the way down at the bottom, or you can just send me a message. Let me know how you're doing and start a conversation. So also on that webpage, you can see some of the things. I do some photography. You can get to just peruse through there and see some of the old photography that I've done. So find me on LukeStoneStudios.com.
Tons of stuff still to come as part of the indie event. Make sure that you're joining us for not only today, the end of Summer Bash, but tomorrow, the Back to School book sale, which will have, of course, Terraform books, including the work of Luke Stone. And you can get his, come on, let's do it. Let's get this hybrids over 50%. The next time I talk to you guys, I want to make sure that this is over 50%. So do it right now. I'm going to put the link in. Again, no excuses. Back a great creator. Back someone.
One trade. That's just one.
Literally, back something. Support someone who has been there for these many years. We want to applaud creators who have staying power, because we want to also keep them staying with us. Luke, I appreciate the time you've given to the indie event today. We are going to watch an exit to the program with Comic Book Advocates bump back in my page, which we'll switch back over. And on our way out, I do want to stress the fact that you should subscribe to the Indie Vault YouTube channel. Subscribe, of course, to Luke Stone's. Do you have a Hybrids fan page? I didn't bother asking.
I do. It's in there, so you have to find it.
Just look up Hybrids on Facebook, and it should pop up.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah. And remember, if you want to be part of the indie event, we just ask you that you be a pair. What does that mean?
Be a pair. Be professional. Be ethical. Be authentic. Be respectful. Remember, in this industry for comics, be a pair.
Terraform Comics is changing the landscape of comics. Subscribe at terraformcomics.com. ComicBookAdvocates.com is the global digital Comic-Con, but it's more than that, and you can be more too. Be more than just a fan. Become an advocate for comics, like ComicBookAdvocates.com is for their creators, for their crowdfunding, for the very books they're creating, because we love comics. All right, everyone, we're on our way out. So on the way out, we're going to watch Luke Stone's narrative work. That's right. He put this video together. This is all him. Any final thoughts on our way out the door?
Yeah, just be good to each other. Leave the wood pile a little bit higher than you found it. And for crying out loud, have fun. It's comics.
Yeah, all right. And here we go.
New from Terraform Comics, Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, Volume 1, Trash Day. When everyday people develop godlike abilities, it is up to a small band of heroes to expose an evil superhuman trafficking ring. This 128-page volume merges history with fiction in an exciting, fast-paced adventure. Get your copy now.